And then today we've got a great lineup. We've got Miss Anna Ford and Christian Felix. Christian beaming in from Phoenix. They're going to be talking later in the program. And then we've got Josh, who's going to be talking about some really cool stuff in the storytelling and Tableau public space. And then, as always, without his partner today in crime, because she's busy doing bigger things, we got Mr. Nathan Senabrini, who's going to be on the onesies and twosies with Kahoot. So super excited for today. What I'm going to do to get us kicked off is just kind of open us up. Let me share my screen just to get us going. So let me know, y'all, when you can see my screen. Boom, boom, and boom. All right, sweet. So this is the order of events. What we're going to do just to kick things off is hopefully everybody's aware that Tableau pushed out, I want to say, was it earlier this week or was it late last week that they pushed out 2020.2? So,
that was 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. So we're behind the times.
Sorry.
So 2020.2 got pushed out a few weeks back, and what I wanted to do was spend just a few minutes talking through some of the cool things that are inside of 2020.2. And so, I think there's three really big things, and then we'll kind of touch on some of the smaller things. The first one is just this new concept of what we call relationships. I'm going to show you just a quick example of this, but I want to give you a preview that in July, we're going to have a deep dive into the concepts of relationships. But relationships are really amazing and helpful for Tableau's data modeling, and it allows for something that has been a struggle in the past, which is many-to-many relationships. And it helps with things like granularity and cardinality and a bunch of things that as you get farther into kind of the data process, you begin to run into some of these complexities. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we are going to have a deeper dive into this. But I do want to show just very quickly. So this is the new 2020.2. I went and got some Major League Baseball data the other day. And so what I've got here is just all the batting statistics season by season by all the different players that have ever played in the major leagues going back to 1874 through, I want to say, 2015. And I've got this player ID, but I don't have a name. And so very similar to what I would have done in the past. I'm going to go and grab this thing called master. This is like a master data set with all the players and all their information. But as you can see, as I'm bringing this out, I now have this kind of what they call the noodle. And so this noodle is going to be my new kind of relationship thing. And the nice thing here is I have the ability to do multiple join-ish type of things. So it found that the player and player ID in both places is there. And then I can also kind of say, hey, is this a many-to-many? Is it a one-to-one? Is it a, what's going on here? And so in this particular case, there's one record per each person, and then there's a bunch of seasons that they've added. So it's a many-to-one, and all the records should match, right? So that kind of just gives me a sense of being able to do that. And if you don't really understand or don't feel comfortable or whatever, and you want to go back to doing it the old way, the easiest thing to do is just double click right into that thing. And you can kind of think of the relationship pieces kind of being a little grouping of how you're going to do this data. So I could do the exact same thing that I just did a minute ago, but have that old experience where I'm kind of doing a very particular inner join, again, on that player ID piece, and I've specified my join, and I can bring out multiple pieces here. So you can make this as simple or as complicated as you want to, but that's how that works. And so if I'm done editing that kind of specific data piece, I can come back and kind of, here's my grouping, and so forth, right? So relationships, again, be a much bigger deep dive coming in the future. And so a couple other things that are released in this new 2020.2 are things like metrics and set control. So set control, I'm going to go ahead and show you here. Set control is very interesting because it allows for basically like a multi-select dynamic parameter. We got kind of a phased approach. I think I started using Tableau in 2011, and I think I've been wanting which is 9 years ago. And I think I've been wanting a dynamic parameter for about 8.75 years of my time using Tableau. And this was one of those things that I remember wanting kind of a dynamic selection. And so set control is that. So the way you do that is you just kind of build out a set. And for us, actually, I think I got rid of mine, but we built out a set previously where I kind of called out the ability to bat left or right. And so it kind of feels like just a normal multi-select thing, but this is actually a set that's behaving as such. So kind of a fun thing there. And the last thing that I was going to show is metrics. And so when you come into something that you're doing in Tableau, whether it be online or whatever, anything that you select, so like if I'm just in a viz that I'm looking at online or Tableau server, whatever, if I want to be able to track this, so what I'm looking at right now is all the batting averages for all the different players for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves came to Atlanta back in 1966, and so this data goes through 2015. So you could, look in here. We could type in Hank Aaron, right? We kind of see how Hank was doing. So kind of here's Hank and doing really good stuff. We go back and kind of find maybe Dale Murphy, right? So here's Dale doing some big things, really good stuff. Kind of slid off toward the end and ended up getting traded towards Philly. Chipper Jones, Freddie Freeman, all these guys are in the data, right? So the way that we would go build a the way we go build a metric is that we would just kind of go find a data point that we want to track. So if I wanted to track Freddie, or if I just wanted to track kind of everybody, like the team batting average over the course of time, either one of those would work. Maybe go back and let's do Hank Aaron real quick. Right, so here's Hank's batting average. So I'm just going to click this, and then what I'm going to do from there is just click on metrics, and this is basically going to say, hey, looks like you want to take this point and build a metric out of it. Is that right? And I'll say sure, right? And so this will be, I'll just do a batting average for Mr. Hank Aaron. And what that'll do, once I hit OK, is recognizing the fact that I've got a date dimension and a measure, so it's going to give me a trend line once we create it. And then we'll just throw that together, boom, just like that. And so now it's built me a new metric, and now I can go to that metric. I get a nice little slick experience here. And so these are, this is kind of Hank's batting average from 1966 through that 74 season. 74, by the way, is the year that I think it's April 8th of 1974 that he hit that 715 home run. So a couple of things that I like and don't like. You have a really nice consistency, nice little interactivity piece here. Don't love the fact that I tried to control the precision. I tried a couple different things and it didn't work. So the ability to control the precision is not quite there quite yet. So that was a little bit annoying. One other thing that I really do like is I'm gonna try to start this broadcast from my phone. All right, so I do love the experience of my phone here. So if you guys can see this, so earlier I made a Chipper Jones metric, and man, that was the year that Chipper won the MVP, so that was awesome. Good job, Chipper. And then I could also go back and just see the entire team's batting average. It's really interesting to see how good they were back when they were good, and then how bad the batting average was when they weren't good, right? Like kind of back in here, that 2014 team was not very good. And then certainly some of these teams in the 80s, man, those things were, whew. But I do really like this experience. If there's a couple metrics that I know I want to look at kind of time and time again on the go, it's right there. If it's not a trend line, it's just kind of a big number. So all those things are there. So I just wanted to kind of give us a quick debrief on that. Let's see if I can get my, am I still sharing? How do I get back to sharing? Nathan. There we go. Hold on, one more. Got one more little thing I was going to show.
So while you pull that up, we did have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
That I'm not sure the answer to. So it's probably going to be helpful for a lot of people. So with the new Noodle model, right?
Mm-hmm.
The dimensions and measures section of our kind of the normal Viz window,
Yes.
they're not separated anymore. It's kind of
Correct.
just separated by a line. and it groups stuff differently, that sort of thing. The question is there a way to revert back to the old view? Is that like a setting? I haven't looked
Yes.
into that. Do you
Such a
know?
good question. Yeah, so let me do this real quick. I'm going to duplicate the data source that I built. I'm going to go back to, so this was our noodle, kind of our new version of it, right? If I go back to the old school and build it old school style, get that inner join right there, and then I come back. Let me see if this is true. I believe, no, actually it does not do that. So it does not look like you can go back to the old school way. Now, that's maybe disappointing for some folks, but I do have this kind of interesting transition. Tableau just released the beta for 2020.3, and one of the things I noticed is something that I've always wanted. And so we have improved search features. So say you want to find only the calculations in your pane over here, you can now do that. My goodness, I can't believe it took them that long. And if you want to find only your dimensions, you can now do that. So it's just kind of D:, M: for measures, and then I guess F: for comments.
That's
So
awesome.
I know, super pumped about that one.
Yeah, it's sharp.
Yeah, super excited about that. And that's kind of where I was going to leave everybody was go check out the new coming soon stuff. One of the biggest things that's in this one is the fact that you are now going to be able to write back to a database in Tableau Prep. So specifically if you've got like a Snowflake or a SQL Server or a Google BigQuery or something like that, you can now kind of pull the data down, run it through prep, and then actually write it back if you've got like a sandbox or something like that. A couple other ones that were super cool were there's kind of a new predictive modeling function that's now inside of Tableau that best I understand it, you don't need to have an R server or a Python server running in the background and be sending things out and getting them back. So I can only imagine that they may begin to enhance that as we go farther in. And speaking of the word in, there is now a new function in 2020.3 called the in function. So think about how cool this would be with kind of dynamic parameters. We've always wanted the ability to use like an in. So right now we have to write, you know, if this thing is equal to this, or if it's 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 equal. Now we have something called in, and it basically just tests whether country is in this case in this set right here. So super helpful for a lot of those things right there. And then there was one other one that I thought was really cool. I'm blanking on it right now. So a lot of really good stuff. I'm excited about kind of what's coming. One thing I did notice was that if you wanted to use explain data on anything that you've done kind of the new noodle on, it does not work. It is not an option for you. So explain data gets grayed out here. That new way on this new data set here, it would work here if I was going to go build a thing here. So because well, maybe not. Maybe it didn't take very well. I don't know. So I thought it worked, but with the new noodle explain data, I think is maybe TBD. So that's a bunch of new stuff. Hopefully that's helpful. Definitely encourage everybody to go explore it, check it out. And I will turn it over to, man, I guess it's Karen, am I turning it to you or do you want me to announce?
Go for it. That's fine.
Sweet. So super excited to announce both Christian Felix and friend of ATUG, for a longtime friend of ATUG, Miss Anna Ford. They're going to be talking about some really amazing work they did as a collaboration on COVID. And as we kind of begin to shift our focus to reopening, you know, Christian and Anna built out a dashboard that's been focused on the Tableau kind of COVID hub. And just excited to learn about kind of how they put all that together. Oh, sorry. Before we get to y'all, so sorry. Real quick, we have two meetings that we want to announce. We want to pay particular attention to the second one, but our next meeting is going to be Thursday, July 16th. We got some great speakers. As I mentioned, we're going to have that overview of the new data modeling, the Noodle. So we're going to do a deep dive on that. And then we're also going to have someone from the Atlanta Track Club who has done some really cool visualizations on data from that. And then if you don't take anything else away from today, listen to this. On August 20th, we're going to do something where we're calling Bring Your Boss to ATUG. The idea of this is that I think we have some of the greatest champions and developers in the metro area, but we're going to spend an entire ATUG focused on kind of the leadership level, kind of the CIO, Chief Analytics Officer, Chief Information Officer, Chief Technology Officer, kind of leadership positions around the space of analytics, and thinking of, and helping everybody understand, like, what are they thinking about and how are they making decisions? What's important to them. And so we think it's great not only for the folks that normally attend this call, but also for the people that are in your leadership at your organizations, for you to bring them. One of the folks that we can go ahead and tell you we already have lined up is the former Chief Marketing Officer from Tableau, Miss Elisa Fink. She's going to be here. We're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to have some discussion on data literacy, data advocacy inside of organizations, kind of data champion pieces. And then we're also going to have a focus on the integration of the Tableau platform into Salesforce and other tools and whatnot. So should be really, really interesting. Super excited about that, and definitely want everybody to attend and to bring your leadership with you. We're hoping to have a handful more CIOs, chief analytics officers, and so forth. And also, just a quick shout out too, if there's somebody in your organization that's in a leadership position that's a real champion of visual analytics or analysis and whatnot, we're kind of going through a vetting process of bringing people in for that panel. So definitely hit either Karen or I up on that one. So boom. All right. With that, now we really will introduce Christian and Anna. Y'all excited for this presentation, and I'm gonna stop sharing so that y'all can get on it.
All right. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, ATL TUG leadership team. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Thumbs up, just saying you can see my screen. Cool.
Yes.
All right, so as mentioned, this is a presentation focused on a collaborative Tableau dashboard between myself and Anna Ford, and it was in regards to visualizing what a COVID-19 reopening would look like. So we're here to walk you through the process, show you sort of an inside peek at how this came to be. Before we dive into that, I think it's helpful to have a little context as to who you're listening to. So my name is Christian Felix. I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona. My background is actually finance. I have a bachelor's and master's in finance. Started working at a company called Raytheon in finance after graduation, and then moved on to IT. And from there, I decided I wanted to get into the analytics space. So started doing a distance master's degree in analytics at Texas A&M. Got exposed to some of the SaaS products. But as I was doing that, as a student, you get a free year's license to Tableau. So I started playing around in Tableau and discovered that the productivity and efficiency surrounding the data exploration process was just so much more efficient. Fell in love with the tool. I've been using it ever since. That was back in 2013. Came back and helped introduce it at Raytheon. And for about the last 5 years, I've been working in self-service business intelligence at Roche here in Tucson. I get to work with Tableau every day. Also work with Alteryx, SQL, and not so much Excel anymore. But yeah, love my job, love what I do. Yeah, so that's me.
I'm Anna, and I've met a lot of you before, presenting because I'm from Atlanta. My background is pretty diverse. My background comes from a business degree from UGA. I started in marketing and very quickly switched to analytics when I worked in DC and worked for the Corporate Executive Board, which is now part of Gartner. But at the time, analytics in the early 2000s was kind of under the radar. And I did ultimately decide to go back to school to be a math teacher. I taught math and statistics for 14 years here in the Atlanta area. And I also worked with people, specifically other teachers working on their dissertations with the numbers and crunching the statistics and also trying to explain the statistics. So while I was teaching AP statistics, I kept telling my students, you're not going to walk into a classroom with a graphing TI-84 calculator and expect people to take, I'm sorry, I said classroom, but I mean a boardroom, and people take you seriously. Hey, check out my graph. So I started teaching them how to work with Excel, and then I fell into Tableau. I found Tableau, and as Christian mentioned, you can also get a free 1-year license if you're an educator. So I had my free Tableau license as an educator, and also the students could get their own and have them working with it. I gave them options to work with Excel and or Tableau, and found that it was just useful and helpful and very intuitive. Fast forward to now, I now teach people on the corporate side how to work with Tableau, specifically how to work with data, ask and answer business questions using Tableau. So in a nutshell, that's me. And I would say that our conversation started, and I'm going to let Christian pick up from here, but our conversation started because I think, Christian, we are on the same Zoom call with Steve Wexler, and we just happened to be talking about statistics and math, and that's more my forte. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a cooking show. We get to the end result fairly quick here, but we'll dive into how we got there as we go. But this is what the end visual looks like. It's called Let's Keep Things Flat. It's really trying to give a visual understanding of, are we flattening the curve or not? That's really the big question that I think a lot of us globally, we're trying to understand and answer over the last couple months. So this is just specific to the US, but what it does is it gives you a multi-dimensional view, right? So you get a view over time. So these 4 columns are a user-defined interval, starting with the most recent date. You could look at it every 10 days and see how the map is changing. And so you get a national view, but you also get a detailed view at the county level. And these charts, we'll get into them as we go along, the strip plots and the spark lines, what they mean, but they give you, all of it combined really gives you tremendous insight into the recovery, the reopening process. Aside from the desktop view, we also have a mobile view, which I thought turned out excellent. I don't get to develop in mobile very often, so when I do public work, I try to do that. So let me just give you a glimpse of that if I can. So it allows a user to either look at the entire US or to look at a single state. Dashboard updates for their state, you get a view of the counties and whether or not the counties are increasing at a decreasing rate or increasing at an increasing rate. And one of the really cool things about this visual is the way that I use the show hide container feature. So you're able to bring up some of the helpful hints and the instructions in the dashboard with these little cards very easily just by clicking on a button, just to help the user understand what it is they're looking at. So Anna mentioned how this came to be. Yes, it did start when we were on a Zoom call with Steve Wexler. I noticed her Twitter handle was the Stats Ninja, so she must be an expert at stats. And so here I am. I'll get to the right side of this, the map, in a little bit, but here I am trying to understand this term. What does it mean really mathematically, increasing at a decreasing rate? It seems to be almost oxymoronical, hard to understand. How should it be calculated? The simplest way so it could be easily understood and explained. So that's really the question I threw her way. What this was the very first iteration of the dashboard. This is using some native functionality within Alteryx that a guy named Ned Harding blogged about. It really allows you to randomize points within a spatial perimeter. So I had the county coordinates, and what it does is based off of the case count in a certain county, it can randomize spatial points within that perimeter. I went away from this for a couple reasons. One, it gave the illusion of more geographic specificity than actually existed within the data. And two, the data just got to be so enormous. So what was happening is the data was being densified to the point where a single record was being created for each case, each day. And so very quickly you go into millions and millions of records and performance just became an issue. So that's a little bit of context. The conversation continued. Anna, do you want to talk to this or?
Yeah, I had to put on my math hat and try to explain as simply as I could over a chat. Kind of, we're looking at, for all purposes, slopes, derivatives, and derivatives of derivatives. So what we're trying to do when we're looking at increasing at a decreasing rate, and I'll talk about this more later, but we're just really trying to see, okay, what's the steepness of this graph and when is it going to start flattening out? And so, which is of course what we kind of keep hearing about, keeping things flat. So I'm trying to explain this over message, and then the last view that he showed was he was highlighting Cherokee County, because I was saying, well, here's what's happening in Cherokee County because that's where I live. So Christian tried to do a really good job of putting it in my context too. I'm gonna give it back to you, Christian.
Yeah, so these are just some numbers. As of yesterday, just doing a quick Google search on COVID status. So 8.06 million confirmed cases globally, 2.2 million in the US. And if you go to Tableau Public and do a search on COVID, you'll get about 21,800 data visualizations published to Tableau Public. So all of that really left me, and I think a lot of people, in this information overload feeling. Makes you,
and sorry,
yeah.
I mean, and should we add, we all kind of felt a little hopeless.
Yeah. So hopelessness, wanting to know when this is going to end, wanting to know what the path forward is like. And I think a good analogy, maybe you're going on a road trip, you have your kids in the back of the car, they're asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And they don't have any context. You tell them soon, but they don't really have any context. There's not a firm answer. And so what we wanted to do was see if we could find a data-driven approach that would let us, being curious data analysts that we were, understand it better, and also let other people do the same. So the last slide, you have information overload. You have sort of a foreboding sense of hopelessness, but at the same time, there's these people that are on the front lines, people working at the grocery stores, first responders. They're out there risking their health. And so I get the sense that, okay, I just create charts. I'm not essential. How can I give back? And so ultimately I wanted to do something, especially if I felt like it could help other people understand what was going on. Anna?
Yeah, and I was in the same boat. I had written an article previously that was talking about, and this goes along with what some people have just said in the chat. It was talking about how do we know which data we can rely on, which questions you should be asking when you look at the data, and one really big thing is what do we know that we don't know, and what don't we know? It was a moment of confusion. And actually, I think we're still in a bit of the confusion part for our entire world. And confusion is a hard place to be. It's easier, well, obviously it's a hard place to be, but it's a hard place to be from a standpoint when you work with data, because we really don't know where it's going and what to look for if we don't even know the data's right. So we had to kind of step back and look at, okay, what can we look at objectively given what we have? We've all seen these curves of what's flattening the curve. Let's flatten it. And one thing I tried to do to kind of help myself through the confusion is try to say, well, okay, I know from teaching statistics that a density curve represents 100% of something. So if in this case, it's 100% of all the people who are going to catch this. We don't know what that number is, but we the idea of flattening the curve doesn't mean we're going to stop it. It means that we are going to, over time, reduce the number of cases at one time. So that right there is what we were trying to look at, is how can we know that we're starting to decrease that, the slope really, which we'll talk about in a second, but how do we know that we're starting to now increase at a decreasing rate? And this is a picture, Nelson had some information about this, I believe 2 months ago. We were looking at, or maybe it was last month, you know, the time's kind of all confusing me right now, but we were looking at the 1918 pandemic and what the curves looked like. So what to expect. Now, this wasn't number of cases. Again, in the last slide, we were looking at number of cases. This is actually number of deaths per 100,000. So that is different. However, the curves speak to the same idea, that we're, at the same time they were, trying to minimize that spike and bring that number of cases, stretch it out over time, rather all at one place. So when Christian came to me and asked me that question, I was like, funny you asked, because I just had this conversation with someone the other day. And I said, I'd really like to explain to someone the difference between looking at the numbers, and we're all still looking at it, by the way. How many do we have today? Just pure numbers versus growth rates. So I gave this example. Now, bear in mind, I understand that there's a lot of variation involved, and we'll talk to that in a minute. So this example is not saying that in 5 days we know a growth rate is going up or down. That's not, this is just an example of the math. But let's just say 3 days ago, the total number of cases were just 10, because we were starting it kind of early when Christian and I were looking at this. So I was trying to start at a very beginning number. And then the next day we're at 30, and then we're at 90, and then we're at 180, and then tomorrow we're at 270. So that doesn't look like there's much hope, right? So I said, well, what if we look at it differently? Because instead of total numbers, what if we looked at it as growth? So look in the second column. What I did with that is I said, and this is how in mathematics, you can figure out what your growth factor is. It's basically, what did you have to multiply by to get to the next number? So I use these simple numbers so you can understand where this is. I'm not questioning anyone's intelligence. This just makes it easier to digest. So from the 3 days ago to 2 days ago, we multiplied by 3. And then the next time by 3 again. But then look, that growth factor going from yesterday to today is 2. That means instead of tripling, hey, guess what? We're now doubling. That's not a bad thing if we're looking at the growth factor instead of just raw numbers. And then of course I look to see, well, then if tomorrow we're at 270, that's actually a growth factor of 1.5, meaning we multiplied 180 by 1.5 instead of tripling. We can also look at growth rates, which you guys are probably more aware of and more comfortable with. And a growth rate is also going to just tell us the percent change from one day to the next. So we're growing by 200%, down to 100%, down to 50%. And to me, that tells and paints a more promising, hopeful story for someone who's just looking at the raw numbers, so somebody can really digest what's going on. And then finally, as we were talking about increasing at a decreasing rate, for those of you who are really into the calculus and the numbers, that's honestly the slope of the tangent line to the curve. We want to look for what's called inflection points to know when we are changing course. So when we're increasing at an increasing rate, obviously we're traveling up. If we read graphs left to right, so going left to right, we're starting to travel up pretty fast. But as we get to that quadrant that's named B, we can start to see that the tangent line is to that curve at the top there is going to be a lot less steep. So meaning the slope of that line is less steep. That's called a derivative. So for those of you, bringing back the calculus there. And then at the very top of that, where it plateaus at the top, if we were to draw a line at the top, it's horizontal. The slope of a horizontal line is 0, meaning there's 0 change. And then as we go into quadrant C, you can see that we're decreasing, we're speeding up as we're going down. And then at the bottom, it's going to start leveling out again. So that's what those words mean. But we realized as we were talking, Christian and I, especially because we bounced this off of another friend, I asked Ben Jones, like, hey, what do you think? He's like, I don't know if people can digest increasing at an increasing rate versus increasing a decreasing rate. I'm like, you know, you're right. Because here I've been stuck in math land thinking, oh, everyone knows what this means, but that's not true. So what we realized in talking to each other is we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to show, but we realized that it's really hard to digest and hard to explain. Yes, I live in math land, Josh. I do.
Yeah, so this is a sample of the visualization landscape at the time we were producing this viz. This is from the New York Times, but it's a variation on a theme. Other publications had similar visualizations out there, and it's as Anna was saying, it's in counts, right? So it's only useful to a certain extent, particularly when the focus needs to be on change. The other issue with this that I would perhaps take exception to is the fact that the morbidity rate associated with COVID is actually quite low, and so you're using a red that typically in the visualization space represents something very serious and death and things like that, and so there's a potential issue there as well. But so all in all, we wanted to produce something that more specifically answers the question that I thought many people wanted to understand. And this is perhaps a little bit better. It gives you a visual more easily of whether or not the curve is flattening, decreasing, but still it's quite busy and it's at the country level as well. We wanted to get more localized than that. I came across this back in late March. This is through the American Enterprise Institute, put out by Dr. Scott Gottlieb and a team. And for me, in that moment, it was one of the first really tangible things I could put my hands on that says, yes, this is a data-driven framework that I could say, I could look at the data and answer the question, at least roughly, now is when we should start to look at reopening, because data says that we've reached so-and-so point. So within this, he gives several phases. Phase 1, slow the spread. And there's data-driven thresholds for each of when we should move on to the next phase. And this one that I've highlighted says the trigger for a move to phase 2 should be when a state reports a sustained reduction in cases for at least 14 days. Similar language ultimately ended up in the guidance released by the White House in April. And so those two things combined says, okay, this is what we need to be visualizing. We need to move away at this point from all of the raw case counts and put together something that visualizes, that answers very easily, are we or are we not meeting this 14-day sustained decrease threshold? This is just something that really drives all of the work that I do and all of the work that the team does at Roche, who I work with, really trying to answer, provide an answer to the question within 10 seconds of a consumer getting to your dashboard. So is high-level situational awareness easily attained when somebody comes to your dashboard, or they have to start digging around? And so that was the objective with this as well. This was a quote that I thought was pertinent that I stole from an Edward Tufte book. Everyone spoke of information overload, but what there was, in fact, was a non-information overload. So we have all these charts, all these graphs, but very few, if any, at least at the point where Anna and I were working on this, really answered that big question, which is what locations, what counties in the US are experiencing a downward trajectory of confirmed cases within a 14-day period. Now, since this time, there have been others that have been produced, published by various parties that do a great job of answering that. But at the time, there simply wasn't many. So this is an example of what we did. Anna, do you want to talk to this in terms of the seasonality, smoothing, and some of the things that we ultimately ended up doing?
Yeah. So part of the problems with looking at just pure numbers and also growth rates and anything like that is if we go day to day, we can have just natural variation. For example, just by chance, just more people could be tested on one day versus another. I mean, that leaves another problem where we can have a spike one day versus the next just by chance. We saw, and if you guys were watching the data, you would see that Sundays, the numbers would go down. And that doesn't mean there was less cases on Sunday. It's just less testing because it's Sunday. So we have to take into account natural variation and that variability in the data, which is why Christian decided to go with a rolling average. And I believe you were comparing a 14-day rolling average. Did you start with a 2-day and then go to a 3-day, or how did you do that?
Yeah, I did, because I think you alluded to it either on the call or before. All the days sort of seem to run together and be a blur in this social distancing, stay at home phase of life, but really there was seasonality, and there is seasonality in the data. So if you look at the weekends, for example, and maybe even a Friday, there's just not as many people going to get tested and not as many confirmed cases. So we wanted to smooth that as much as possible. And so we compared the 3-day moving average to that 14-day sort of one incubation, one quarantine period to do the comparison. And what we're looking at here is Orleans County, Louisiana, where it was one of the very early hotspots. And so you see this rapid increase in case counts, but coming down the curve and ultimately dropping below the 14-day moving average line in mid-April. And so the implementation of this, it would have been possible within Tableau, table calcs, other ways, but I wanted to maximize performance as much as possible. So I did a lot of the prep work in Alteryx. And so what we're looking at here, I'll try and walk you through this sheet. You have the 3-day moving average increase, the 14-day moving average increase. And what I'm doing is just assigning, comparing these two, is there an increase or is there a decrease? And then all I'm doing is counting the consecutive, the consecutive responses in a row. And so where there's increases after increase, it continues to count sequentially. Where it changes, it starts over again. And so we have this color coding that gets darker and darker the more days consecutively you run into. And so looking at the graph again, it helps you understand how the color coding really plays in to the data. And then you look at the map, and this is when I think, at least me, maybe Anna as well, really started to get encouraged by looking at the data, because you start getting into late April and the map becomes very blue, much bluer. And so you have a lot of orange as you get into late March, early April. But then sometime around the mid-April, you see a lot of these counties really turning the corner. And instead of going from consecutive days increasing, you have consecutive days decreasing.
And I just want to add, there's probably, we could get a screenshot of our messages, because I remember messaging and being like, I suddenly feel like there's some hope after looking at what you had created, watching that change. And something that I've heard a lot of talk recently, like in the last 2 weeks, when I can hear people talking about the data, and they've been saying, okay, at the macro level, it looks like this, but on a micro level, it looks like this. But I never heard that until, in fact, when I started looking at yours, I said, well, looking at the county level versus the country level, which is kind of what one of the other big differences with this visualization is, it's suddenly what you were able to draw out pieces of, like I said, hope and just like, okay, we're not going to be stuck here forever feeling. I'll let you go on.
I think Christian might have got frozen.
The stuck here forever feeling. Right there. It's perfect. It might have been frozen. but I'll just add to that, that I have recently, you know, as we're seeing the number of cases increase again, we've seen a lot more talk of people saying, but if you go down to the state, even county level, we are seeing some differences. There's still some hope in there. It's not all doom and gloom. I could probably share my screen, but I probably need, I think he dropped off, but I can share my screen. I have it just to keep it rolling here. I don't have the cool animations, I don't think. Let's see. I'll share mine if that works. Can I do that?
Go for it.
Sure.
Okay. And then if he gets back on, we can switch, because he, as in Christian, is the mastermind. Okay, you're probably seeing the wrong screen. Oh no, that's what I get. Are you seeing which screen are you seeing?
It says fooled by geography.
Okay, so it's not the presenter screen. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, apparently I wasn't really prepped to switch off like this. So, all right. So he's showing the Johns Hopkins University data. And again, when he jumps back on, I'll let him take it away. But this is where he was going to talk about the end product and just those details. So he will also probably have to come back and talk about his shapes. So
I'm back. Can you all hear me?
you're back? Oh, good. Okay, I'll drive and you can talk.
I apologize for that. I think the issue with this map is your focus automatically goes to Southern California and Arizona, because it's the biggest space on the map that's red, because it's the largest size of the counties at that point, where really a lot of the cases were in New York, New Jersey, and that's where your focus should be. So this really demonstrated the need to visualize the data in multiple ways. And so if you can go to the next slide, Anna, just a bit of technical details before I go into visualizing in multiple ways. I use a tool called Map Shaper. One of the things that I do not like, and I think this may be an improvement in future releases, but you visualize the US and you need to include Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. But the map is skewed because of the size of Alaska. So you got to use some tool, whether it's QGIS or Map Shaper or some other geographical tool to resize Alaska and replace it to the south of the contiguous US. So that's what I did. And go ahead to the next slide. So yeah, we wanted to visualize it in multiple ways. So we have the map, we have the county-based choropleth, but also the strip plots. So the strip plots show 30-day segments by county. You're able to see within that 30-day time period whether or not the county is increasing or decreasing. And the black bar chart shows the peak case count for each county. So you're very quickly able to see within that 30-day time period, has the peak case count been recent, or has it been further in the past? Go ahead, Anna. Additionally, there's spark lines. And on the right, you see sort of the instructions on how to read it that I included in the visual as well. But what the spark lines do is show the doubling time. So we wanted to show the increasing and decreasing sequential days, but also visualize it another way, showing the doubling time. So really that's the amount of days that it takes for the case count to double. And so the larger the number, the better. And so the red dots within the spark lines show the minimum doubling time within that date range. And then again, you have the 30-day time period that's represented by the black line in the spark lines as well. All right, and so the results. So this ended up being featured by Tableau, and it gives a quick demo to the usability, the filtering, and it was quite the surprise. It ended up also being a viz of the day. If you go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, a viz of the day, and it also ended up being, the article was a Data Viz Society featured write-up. So a lot of things came out of this. It was a cool collaboration, and Anna, I'll turn it back over to you to talk to some of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that I was included in this conversation, because honestly, it was Christian's visualization, but he brought me into the discussion. We talked about things. He bounced things off my off of my math brain, and I was able to learn so much. He would give me the workbook, and I would work backwards and learn so much in Tableau that I didn't know. So in a way, I feel like this was a way for me to learn as I'm just talking to him about these ideas and these concepts with working with data. The best part about this is I got a good friend out of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so I'll just add that second quote because I think it's wisdom. And regardless of how big your contributions are perceived to be, there's sort of unknown benefits that as a team member are just brought to the table, whether it's a prompting question or just an accountability saying, hey, where are you at with this? Anna mentioned getting feedback from different members of the community. Some of that feedback was good, some of that was negative. And so for every Tableau public viz that I have out in my profile, there's probably one that never quite made it over the line. And so this was very much in the realm of possibility that this would be there also. And so just having somebody to ask questions, to get some real good answers and some engagement with was incredibly helpful. So it was a great team effort. It was fun, and I feel like it was well worth the time. So that's it.
And one more thing, when I would say that when there was negative feedback, you could have very easily said, well, that was a good idea. But instead, you pushed through, you fixed things, you changed things, you altered your course and created this spectacular visualization.
You guys, this was awesome. I know there was a lot of really positive feedback and comments in the chat. I wish we had time to dig into some of the questions. We may have to push them to the end because I know we're a little short on time, and we have Josh still, and Nathan's about to do his Kahoot game. But I just want to say really quick that I really wish that Viz is not only like beautiful, but it does such a good job at answering that question. Like Christian, you were saying in the beginning, like just initially being able to get to the point and clearly articulate, it's one of the most well done that I've seen. I feel like I wish that's the type of thing that was on the news.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I mean it. Okay, Nathan, if you want to go ahead and start Kahoot.
All right, Anna.
And I'll be joining you. You haven't gotten rid of me yet.
That's awesome. Yeah, so let me share my screen. While I do that, so real quick, what's that?
Yeah, so if you're new to this, you'll want to either have the Kahoot app on your phone or go to kahoot.it. And when Nathan shares a screen, you're gonna have a login number. Now, I did give a little extra time this time because I heard about the delays for getting your answer in. So we do have 20 seconds instead of 10 this time for each question.
And the link, Anna, can you say the link, is it kahoot.it?
.it,
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, so those of you, when you join us for the next Kahoot in next month, you'll just have to have the app on your phone.
All right, do you guys see my screen?
I don't hear the music.
I see it.
All right, well, sing a little bit. Doop, boop, boop, a doop, boop, a doo, boop, 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 a doo. Welcome to Kahoot. Guys, so yeah, if this is your first time, open up your phone, go to kahoot.it, put in that little number, make up a name that's family friendly.
Yes, appropriate only,
Antoine. Please. So Antoine, is it Antoine that's won twice?
So
I think that's right.
Yeah. We've got some pretty competitive folks in here. I like it.
We do. So
Chipper Jones is playing. Welcome, Chipper.
Oh, Chipper. Yeah, so this time I'm giving you a little bit more time. We're doing it without the music, unfortunately. I guess I could stop sharing and then Reshare. Oh, here we go. Can you guys hear that?
Yes. So this is our answer to, oh, it might not work very well, this feedback. So this was our answer to networking. So we don't have that networking break that we used to have. So, you know, for those of you who knew, Nathan's like, let's play Kahoot. And I'm like, oh yeah, I played that with my students. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody's name is Flattening Curve. I love, without the E. Y'all are hilarious. I'm loving it.
All right.
And be ready
All
for
right.
questions about anything that has been mentioned in today's, so far, about today's ATUG meetup.
Whoops. Oh, little preview.
There you go.
Remind me to talk about that at the end. All right, so
Do
when
we
we
have
hit
any
50
swag
players,
for
we're going to get
winners?
started. So we need 6 more of you. Come on, guys.
Do we have any swag for a winner?
It depends. Depends. I don't know what it depends on. Depends how cleanly they win and how far away we have to send a t-shirt to.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, sometimes we can't tell who it is when you have like a fun nickname, so we'll have to, if we can find you, sounds really creepy. If we can find you, get something.
All right, we're almost there. Come on, guys. 3 more of you. Come on back from the bathroom. There we go. All right, that's good enough. You ready?
Ready?
All right, here we go. Welcome to the ATUG Trivia. First question. Josh Preston works for the North Avenue Trade School, which is more commonly known as one of these.
You're in Atlanta. You should know this.
Come on,
I hope
ATL.
Karen's laughing.
Yeah, I love that.
Are there really 2 D's in SCAD?
Yes, right? Maybe not. I don't know. Actually, no, I don't think so.
Wow, look at that, 34. Good job, guys. But is that curve flattening? Sherry, strong. Or Cherie. How would you say that?
Oh, Sherry. I have no more.
All right, next question. Tucson, Arizona is located in which time zone?
Be careful.
In Mountain Daylight, Mountain Standard, Pacific Standard, or Tucson time. I used to work with a guy that called it Tucson.
No way.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Tucson time.
Whoa! I thought
Mountain
we were going to
Standard.
stump everyone here. Yeah, I pretty much say, Christian, you're on Pacific time right now.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you don't observe daylight savings.
No way.
I love it.
Nice. All right, bigger is now the biggest. Here we go. Question number 3. Of the following classics, which movie was not filmed in Tucson? Revenge of the Nerds, Major League, Tin Cup, Road Trip? I think you're gonna stump him with this one, Anna. This is your question, right?
Wait a second. But the movie that is not filmed, I was an extra in. This was filmed in Athens, Georgia. It's also not a classic, but
I would say Road Trip.
I was an extra in Road Trip in college.
Were you really?
Yeah,
scene
they
was
filmed it
like-
on University of Georgia campus.
Oh wow.
I
Or
think
some
I
of
know which movie that is, but you'll have to remind me sometime.
If we,
None
if
of
we
the
were to
quotes
try
are
to
safe
pull
for
that
work.
up, and could we find you in the film? Like, do you actually see you?
In an outtake. I know. Womp womp.
Okay. Oh, Sherry reclaiming or Cherie?
Oh,
Cherie. All right, number 4, here we go. Tableau 2020.2 introduced which features? Parameter actions, ask data, Tableau relationships, or extra value meals?
The best
I think
part
it's
about this, when I
extra
wrote
value.
this question, I actually didn't know we were going to be talking about 2020.2 today. So rock and roll.
I wish, so if this was Tableau, I would click on this right here and say view data, and I would try to figure out who this one person is. But I don't think we can see that. All right. The Tableau relationships. Wow, Cherie holding strong. Sherry. All right, question 5. Southernmost ski destination in the continental United States can be found in one of these states. Is it the Florida Keys?
Ooh.
Arizona. Wow. Where is that in Arizona?
When you guys come visit, I'll take you. Mount Lemon, beautiful. 2 runs. That's all you get.
2 runs. Ooh, Hawk is on fire.
Fire. Look at that.
What is that? Does that mean that Hawk answered so fast? Oh, no, 5 correct in a row. Wow. Wow. Good job, Hawk. In what years were local ATL fellows Mark Jackson and Nelson Davis named Zen Masters? And this is the tricky
This is a
one.
hard question.
You really got to know.
I would have gotten it wrong had you not told me the answer. Because I didn't think Nelson was old enough.
I almost got it wrong.
Yeah, so Mark Jackson 2013, Nelson Davis 2014. Are there any other Atlanta Zen Masters? I
Yeah.
should have asked
Andy
you that.
We
Kriebel,
sort of,
technically, right?
sort of claim Andy Kriebel because he was
And Dan Murray.
and Dan Murray.
Dan Murray,
Yeah.
you're right.
So those are the 4.
Oh, Dan, I'm so sorry. Should have added you in there. But that would have made the question so hard. All right. Will on fire. Look at Hawk, killing it. Although that's not an insurmountable lead, guys. See, Christian, are you playing? Is this you?
Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming for Hawk.
Oh,
You don't
baby,
hurry up.
come
Jen's
on.
going to yell at us.
Here we go. What's the current max number of columns in a Tableau crosstab?
Also a tricky
16,
question.
40, 50, 99, 3,000?
I didn't think there was a maximum. Just keep adding them. Just slows everything down.
Yeah, I was reading a blog post on it, and I forget who it was. He said, if you need more than 50, then you probably should be using Tableau. So there you go. 50 it is. They recently changed it from 16 to 50. Oh, Hawk, Nelly D, come on. All right, we're getting close to the end here, folks. Last question. Which data connection is not a current option in the connection pane? I didn't know it was actually called the connect pane. I had to search for what is this pane called. Is it Impala?
Ooh, that was a hard
Yeah,
one.
so Airtable. I feel like it's the dumbest thing that there's not an Airtable connection, but I don't know why that is. I'd never heard of Impala. You ever used Impala?
It's an old school database.
Old school.
Old school.
Yeah, but there is a connector to Dropbox and QuickBooks. Very exciting. All right, here we go. The final winners. Third place, Groder. In second place, Will. And first, Christian. Nelly D. All right. Oh, Christian, runner up. You and Hawk.
Nice.
That's great. That's so fun. Boom. That was fun.
Congrats, y'all. Thanks
One
for
quick
playing.
thing. Yeah, thanks for playing, guys. Nellie D, congrats. Nellie D, why don't you hit us up in the chat window and tell us who you are, because that's exciting. One quick thing before we move along. The Atlanta Alteryx user group has kind of taken a bit of a hiatus for the past 6 months, but it's back and it's going to be better than ever. But we want to let you guys know that, since Tableau and Alteryx are kind of like peanut butter and jelly for a lot of people, that you may be interested in joining us on June 30th. This one is a kind of a combined East user group meeting. And then Atlanta and Georgia, it's really going to be the whole state of Georgia. We're doing a meetup on July 23rd. It will be virtual, and it will be followed by a happy hour. Very exciting. All right, so I'm done, and until next time, kahoo!
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, next up we've got Josh. Josh Preston, you guys know Josh. He participated in our panel discussion back in December. Josh is a buddy of mine. He is a big Survivor fan, just like I am. It's his favorite show, just like my favorite show. So we bonded a while back over that. In fact, he has a Survivor Viz that won Viz of the Day fairly recently, like a few months ago. So Josh is going to do a presentation on storytelling in public. And just a little background, Josh works in PR at Georgia Tech, and he does visualizations and reporting, promoting technology research, and it's the type of technology that we'll all probably see in a few years on our phones or virtual reality headsets or whatever. And Josh says he could not sleep the night he discovered Tableau. So I will turn it over to you, Josh.
That's a true story. And Karen, you could have been part of that Viz of the Day for the Survivor 40th season. Karen was doing more important work, organizing these Atlanta tugs.
Or homeschooling my kids.
And now homeschooling her kids. I very much appreciate being invited to do a presentation on this, but maybe we'll do a collaboration someday, Karen.
Yes. Yes.
So in all honesty, I'm just here to give you some of my experience in Tableau Public and kind of give back to the community. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and show what everybody probably came to see, which is the Death Star blowing up. But in all honesty, public data sets are where I've cut my teeth on Tableau and been able to bring that into my work at Georgia Tech. And the way, the closest I can compare what I do at Tech with visualization work is like data journalist. Like we're seeing now a lot of data journalism with COVID-19 dashboards, and 538 does regular data journalism. So basically, everything I do is for public consumption professionally and for personal interest. So you have to have a pretty thick skin just to put your visualizations out in the wild. So I'm going to figure out where my presentation is. And basically, I've had about 5 years of experience in Tableau. And so this is one of my early visualizations. It's just a simple filter where you hover filter action and you can blow up the Death Star. Those are shapes. So there's just 5 shapes for this visualization. And if you want to see the full viz, you can go check out why I was trying to blow up the Death Star. And it's fairly easy because I came to this from the communications and marketing background, had no idea how to use data, but Tableau is so incredibly intuitive. It was very simple for me to jump in and learn it. And I've never looked back, to be honest with you, excuse me. I've just kept going and going and going. So if you haven't already taken the plunge, and a lot of people have, basically doing Tableau for personal hobby type vizzes, that's what's great about our community. A lot of people have already done it. But if you're in your comfort zone, I would say you should do it because we're in a media saturated society with YouTube videos, memes, illustrations, animations. We basically can introduce visualizations into the conversation and have more, I think, interesting conversations with data. And like I've already said, you get really good with your data skills because where to start. You start with your personal interest, and you actually put a lot of passion. It'll reflect in your data visualization. The work that you're passionate about, you'll take time to narrow the story that you're trying to tell, or to figure out the focus and the design, information design you want to share. So getting started is kind of easy. You have to have the confidence, I think, in your skills. Everybody here has a certain skill set. They're comfortable with the data, and it's a matter of just packing up those data skills and going out into the wild. You have to throw your baby across to the other bank, like in this picture, and see if it survives and thrives, or if it dies in the wild, right? So you can start with something hard. Why not start with something hard? So Star Wars, everybody knows that's a thing, right? Star Wars, if you haven't heard of it, you probably don't care about science fiction, but put your own spin on something. I'm going to break some of my own rules, because on the far left is an older visualization, but I'll touch on what I think makes for a visualization that can capture people's interest really quickly, because you only have a couple seconds to capture people's interest on the internet, right? So come up with a good headline. Dirty Little Droid. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know R2-D2 spends a lot of time in the desert. So this is basically just a scatter plot. R2 is a scatter plot with the dirt on him. And because of Ryan Sleeper, I learned how to do images in the background. So that's a background image actually mapped onto the X and Y axis. But this breaks a lot of other rules that you probably shouldn't do. I gave too many filters up at the top. I thought I was being cute with all the filters, like Princess Leia, but it might be a little overwhelming. Fast forward a few years to the Sarlacc pit, and this kind of reflects my own interest in Star Wars these days. I'm kind of, it's feeling a little bit bloated. So the Sarlacc pit ate every Star Wars story except for the good ones. This is a radio bar chart. It's kind of hard to do a custom radio bar chart with custom teeth that have to be angled differently all the way around, but it was a fun thing to do with a public data set. So start someplace hard or start someplace easy. Either way, you'll learn. So the simple things that you can do, this I thought was just fun and sustainable. The others are just more one-offs, right? You create it, it's one and done. Might be hard to update unless you really keep track of it, but this is a Project Gutenberg public domain books. So please, please, please don't buy your classics off of Kindle. You can get Kindle ebooks, EPUBs for free instead of paying $3 rather. And then because of a simple trick, you have to have interaction, right? Capture people's interest with something they're interested in, but make sure there's a value for them to going and playing with it, and make it obvious you can play with it. So we'll talk more about how do you make it more obvious that you can play with these. They're not just infographics. But Charles Dickens, on the top 100 list for the past week, you can see that he has a lot of not bestsellers, but lots of downloads. And those are the native ranks, courtesy of a table calculation from a Joe Mako workbook. So give people that extra context. Don't just do a index where, it'll be books 1 through 6. These are the actual native ranks, which I really thought added a little bit of value. And then what I think you can do, you can move into is do something simple and design focused, right? You may not think you have the time, but you're at work, you're finding data all day long, in news articles and whatnot. You may not think you're a designer, and you may be worried about if you can't design, what if you borrow assets off the internet? Is it copyrighted? There's no one simple decision when you're approaching a story you care about, but just use your own judgment about you're a fan for something. You're not making money. You're creating, like everybody does on the internet. You're being an artist, so to speak. And here on the screen, this is a simple story. Every single Netflix show out there, and it's what the audiences and the critics think about the Marvel shows. So the left and right side, really simple line chart. But then I stole Netflix's original art for the Punisher. The giant skull is the Punisher skull, and they didn't come after me. I mean, I'm spreading the love. I'm not trying to make money off of their art or anything like that. So that adds to the design, and obviously gives the audience right away an idea of what's going on, I hope. And so, Christian and Anna, they're doing the hard work, right? They did a very, good presentation on serious topics. But I think whatever you do, whether it's personal or for work, right now is the time where you can start doing, I think, more user-focused data visualization work, because Tableau 20.2 made bar charts more interesting. They made them fun again because of animations, and then set actions, as Nelson mentioned, and parameter actions are more intuitive. They're being advanced to make them, again, end user focused or user experience focused. So this is a really simple bar chart, and if you put a parameter action in and you allow people to animate the parameter or their selection, it just makes it much more fluid, I think. And set actions, I think, have arrived. Someone can probably push back on that statement, but I never use set actions, but basically giving people more control, more agency to be part of the data story. This is just books that are very long, or book series that are very long, and ones that are finished and not finished. As you can see, George R. R. Martin is, I don't think, going to finish Game of Thrones at the bottom here, but people can take the set action, and they can, if you go to the active or the interactive version of this, you can actually select the books you want added, and the little yellow dots will populate. Kevin Fleurage, or Fleurage, he had a very good blog post on this and goes deep into it if you want to check out set actions, which I think, again, are a great user experience now with the new functionality. All right. So scrape like a champ. People might be thinking, how do you even get started? This is a bit of a learning curve, but there's one free tool I use, and I really hope there's others out there, because this one I kind of depend on. And then I learned in another one of these Atlanta Tug meetings about the Google Sheets import HTML function. If you can find a list on Wikipedia or tables on Wikipedia, there's so much free data out there. It's a matter of what you care about. But I do want to demonstrate really quickly the functionality of import.io. It's really good at structured data, as you would guess it should be, and it's really intuitive. It's free, up to 500 URLs, and they have this little thing called extractors. So you can extract a URL, and apparently the New York Times keeps track of the best movies on Netflix. It doesn't look like it's structured data, but it's great licensed content available on Netflix as of last week, and the New York Times maintains it. And so instead of doing something that you maybe not have time to do, which is cut and paste, you cut and paste that URL into import.io. And the structured data that it provides is really clean, and it's an intuitive, code-free way to capture public data sets. So I discovered this a long time ago, and I've tried other things which haven't necessarily stuck around or panned out. So again, I'm just holding my breath here. It can't find anything right now, so you go to the take me to the point and click, the manual iteration. And the great thing is you just can point and click, and you go down to what you want to try to capture. And because the New York Times has a really good web developer, there's a table associated with that headline for that first movie, and bam, you click yes, and
Hey, Josh.
it just works.
Josh, we're only seeing your PowerPoint. We're not seeing. I think you're clicking on import.io.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess I might have to vouch for it. It's in the PowerPoint presentation. Sorry about that. Thanks, Nelson. So what we'll have to do is go and point and click on import.io. I would highly recommend that. I don't know how to flip. Are we back on the PowerPoint?
You are, man. You're good.
Okay. So you take the effort, you go this route, you kind of do data at work and data at home if you want to do that like I do. But what are the key ingredients to giving yourself a chance to find an audience? People are busy. People might not know the amount of analytical work and the information that you're giving to them, right? So I've found in my experience, just 4 bullet points. Everybody calls themselves something different in this business, but I like to focus on information design. information design. You don't have to be a classic designer, but you can simply learn how to pull out the story you want by focusing on, number one, engaging headlines, give people that first impression, and then labels and annotations. You may think it's a no-brainer, and these may be givens, which you do every day. You know how to do this, but then you have to focus in on what you're actually annotating and what you want people to pay attention to. And to be honest with you, you can do a great interactive experience on desktop, but then you have to figure out what people are going to immediately understand is something they can play with. So it's really a matter of iterating. And in this example, Ken Ferlage, the elder, or excuse me, the younger of the Flurridge twins, I'll get their name right eventually. He did a great custom format for a Kirby timeline. So again, using Tableau in the community to create some interesting story and keeping that in your back pocket, I think is possible if you want to go that route. I promised new content for this group, not just for this group, but to kind of unveil some new content. And it's pretty timely, but just emphasizing when you're on desktop, you go to server, you need to test, because you know what you want when you consume media on the internet. And as much as you love and you want to have a lot of interaction on your dashboards, you might need to scale it back to 1 or 2 that really engages people and draws them in to spend some time with your work that you've created over whatever period of time. So strip the interactivity down and then optimize it once you know how things are operating on Tableau Public. And I will go to this really quick. I hope you can actually see this. If not, then you get to have the bonus of playing with this afterward. Oh, I know how to share this screen. Okay. So just to give you a teaser, Watchmen came out in December, and it's really timely because it deals with racism. You know, the world kind of has turned upside down in a number of different ways. So people often love stories. People engage with stories. So how do you have hard conversations? You do it through storytelling. So if you like superheroes, you like women-driven narratives, you might be attracted to this, but if you actually watch the show, you'll realize there's a deeper meaning and deeper message. And if you just want to see the actresses' filmographies, then you have that opportunity. I won't belabor the point, and I guess I can't show the interaction right now, but this is setting the stage. This top part is a 4,500 pixel visualization. And I had the analytics of it, which is below the fold or below the screen. When you get a chance to interact with it, I'll have these slides available after. But the analytics took a little bit of time, and they happened right away because I had the data from IMDb. But then setting the stage right here is it's one of the greatest shows on HBO within 3.5 decades of programming, and the history of the actual source material, and then the characters who are you actually focusing the story on. I felt that was important. And that took me, stepping away from the visualization and each night coming back to it and saying, that doesn't work, or that's really bad, and kind of stepping away to kind of be more objective about the work itself. So I hope you will visit that. I'll actually push it out. I haven't actually advertised it on social media. I'll push that out after this. And, again, it's something if you're not familiar with, I hope you like it. Promoting your work. We saw the great animations from the COVID maps, and GIFs are one of the easiest way to let people know something's interactive. And so this visualization doesn't have a lot to it. There's labels and it's a dot plot, but if you do a GIF, you can know that you get to play with it. So I would highly encourage you. I still haven't found the optimal solution for GIFs, but I would highly encourage you to get a workflow that includes you, after doing all the work, being able to give it the best chance of people playing with it when you do share it publicly. And basically going back to how organizations, you're using organizational data, they make it publicly available, but different brands have different reactions to how you might use their data. Honestly, they know, because visualizations just aren't, funny memes, and they're not, YouTube commentary videos. They're a totally different way of engaging people. And I've gotten some weird reactions from brands, or I've had good reactions, but one in particular, they prevented me from scraping their website. This was just a fake competition between fictional characters. So if you want to have Smaug the dragon from The Hobbit fighting Voldemort from Bilbo Baggins, or excuse me, from Harry Potter, they basically created fake fictional fights, and I did a bump chart of it, and they eventually stopped me from scraping it, and I got really nervous. But then when I published this, they liked my tweet. So it was a really inconsistent message I got from that publishing company. But I've never had anybody say you can't use copyrighted material and so on and so forth. But again, you have to go and decide how you want to publicly share your passion for whatever work you're doing, and people shouldn't have a problem with it unless they really don't want you to use their data. Really briefly, public data sources, I use Wikipedia a lot. I give them $1 a month because they have a great list and tables. And we've already covered Importio. Hopefully there's a plan B out there. I'd love to know who else is using different code-free tools. And it was mentioned in 22, a lot of the great new functions, but exploring workbooks and reverse engineering workbooks in the browser is now available. I don't know if it's exactly attached to 20.2. It's just attached to the Tableau public server. And you can actually open up workbooks, and this is a screenshot, to look at calculations and quickly find something you might like about another workbook without having to download it. So you've arrived when you actually do put something on social media and then you get trolled, or people kind of actually react. Not the Tableau community, because you guys are great at reacting on Twitter and supporting and sharing the work. Everybody shares freely, but we're talking just random people. With this best of the decade list for video games from CNET, the editor was great. He was like, cool, I like it, And then people started debating if this was actually a good list. Not the work itself, but they started debating, no, these are not the best video games. And then I skipped a whole decade of music. So I'm grateful to Stereo Gum for actually producing the best 200 songs of the decade. And yes, I used their exact art from their article, and I attributed it to them. So, you have to, again, decide how you want to actually engage with people you're getting this data from, if it's news organizations or whatnot. And that ends my official presentation, and hopefully the beginning of your journey into pop culture visiting.
That was awesome, Josh. I love that.
Thanks.
We had one question come in just like right at the end. Hang on, I think it was in the chat. Someone was interested to see that last one, how you edited the browser.
Oh, editing in the browser. That's amazing. Tableau Public keeps adding to its functionality. So I'll go to the web. So we actually got to the web here. So you can go in, do you see the visualization on Tableau Public? Okay. So right here at the top, you basically go to edit, and you can do this for any author on Tableau Public that makes their work available. And that's about 99% of the community. And so within the browser, it's right here. I mean, it's not 1-for-1 parity with the desktop version, but you can actually go here, and there's a lot of functionality. And if you want to see, even right here in this worksheet at the top of this visualization, you go in here and it pulls up the worksheet, and you can see the calculations and all the data pane and everything. So yeah, it's pretty cool that you can do that in the web. And if you don't want to save it, your own work, I think you can actually, you can save this workbook elsewhere to your profile, and then I think it automatically attributes to the original author. So it's a brand new function. I can't tell you everything that happens in it, but I've made little tweaks, those insufferable tweaks with floating objects that you don't want to open up a whole workbook just to change those floating objects.
Yeah.
A perfect example is we actually get to see the new work I just published. This is a floating object on your bar chart. This is a whole different worksheet, but all of them exist on every single actress, and they, see, that one's not even aligned. So you can align things with floating objects and make small tweaks, which is just really fun.
This looks great. Yeah, that is amazing. I knew that you could do it, like we have that on our server at work, you know, the ability to edit it, but I feel like I kind of knew it was available on public now, but I haven't tried it, so that's really cool. I know that Christian and Anna had to drop off, so I don't think they'll be able to like answer live any of their questions, and I think we had a few questions in here that were more directed for them, but we could always include any responses I can get from them in a thank you email to everyone that was able to attend.
They're both on Twitter, so if you want to reach out directly, you have a question, definitely encourage you to do that. So we'll make sure to include their Twitter handles and ways that you can reach out to them as well.
Perfect. Is there anything else we have for today?
No, just a quick reminder. This is go sign up for the Alteryx user group. If you're an Alteryx user, get ready for our July and our August. When we have August is going to be bring your boss to ATUG. So super pumped for that. And I think that's it, Karen.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much. Josh, it was awesome. Thanks, everyone. Nathan, thank you so much. All right, guys, we'll see you next month.
Thanks, guys.